Welcome to the fifth and final phase of the UC Buyer's Journey podcast. We call Phase 5 the adoption phase. So many companies already find themselves at the adoption phase of the UC Buyer's Journey. They're working hard to adapt or convert their existing communication systems to a unified platform. If you've just purchased or implemented a UC solution, you're also going to want to know the same information that they're going to need to know about adopting your new solution to fit the needs of your company. If you're looking to transition from a legacy system to a UCaaS system, you're also going to want to be able to effectively navigate the twists and turns that are on this little adoption road. There are 5 critical pitfalls that you're going to want to avoid while you're doing this adoption phase. The first is accepting underdeveloped and ungoverned SLAs or service level agreements. A UCaaS is kind of a complex beast. Its scope will span across essentially all of the operating functions of an organization, and that can include multiple service provider affiliations. For those reasons, it's difficult to keep a comprehensive service level agreement. SLAs can also lack the governance to encourage adherence to agreed service levels and performance objectives. So essentially, it might be difficult to make sure that your vendors and your, for example, internet service providers are performing at the rates that you need in order to keep your business running. So you're going to want to make sure to maintain agreements with them to ensure that your business can continue running smoothly. In order to actually receive the services you agreed upon, you'll need to guarantee your SLA covers all of the UCaaS functionality and services and ensure that you have the power to enforce that SLA. The next step is step 2, overestimating existing platforms and support systems. This is something you do not want to do. UC delivers a cohesive service of voice, video, and data, but occasionally, without significant network improvements, UC can lead to poor voice quality and network performance. Some organizations' infrastructures, especially those with an older legacy system or non-IP PBX platforms, they're not really equipped to effectively deal with all the voice and video applications. Sometimes it's trying to squeeze too much data through too small of a pipe, essentially. Additionally, adjusting these existing infrastructures to support UC may also impact data traffic, which can impede mission-critical applications with longer downloads, slower response times. You're going to want to make sure that your infrastructure is capable and ready to handle the stresses of a UCaaS system. Your existing support teams are also going to might be unprepared to manage, troubleshoot, and diagnose the issues that come up with a UC solution. These are things that you're going to be talking about with your implementation manager, like we talked about in phase 4. But depending on your solution, it can vary pretty widely, and it can also depend on the internet service providers in your area. There are quite a few things. Luckily, at this stage of the UC buyer's journey, you should have a lot of that ironed out, but it's important to maintain all of that. You're going to want to make sure that if you need to increase your limits, that there are systems in place for that. So it's very important to make sure that you have everything that you need to keep moving forward and to keep growing if you need to. So troubleshooting alone involves a complex merger of vendor-derived, end-user, and protocol and packet-based data sources for real-time understanding and diagnosis of the issues. So you're going to want to make sure your teams are comprehensively prepared for far-reaching and complex systems and technical issues before they are expected to provide support. Another issue people face is issue number 3, choosing the wrong UC provider for your organization. We talked about this in some of the earlier phases. A challenge that many organizations face while transitioning to UCaaS is selecting the right provider. Most providers, especially the larger multi-regional or global providers, tend to focus on only 1 or 2 of the major categories of UC standards. And they don't consider all of the managed service options. UC providers struggle to serve all aspects of UCaaS equally, and they tend to hyper focus on categories that have proved effective in their space and are effectively money makers for them. The lack of the comprehensive focus is attributed to that fact that UCAS is kind of widely defined and it's ambiguous. There are no industry-wide standardized measurements for evaluating UCAS's offerings delivery and their performance capabilities. So it's up to you as a consumer to identify which needs are most critical to your organization and find the provider that delivers those needs, or find a provider that's comprehensive in all of them, which can be difficult. The fourth pitfall that a lot of companies arrive at is ineffective training and practice. UCAS consists of several major parts, and each of these parts required training and practice in your organization's environment. This starts with members of the IT department and internal UC administrators who will start training on the overall solution, expectations of the solution, and then the intricacies to manage the UC solution. End users might have different levels of training needs. Different departments are going to need different levels of training. If a UC solution includes integrations like CRM, contact center, recording, each user will need to be trained on the UC solution as well as those other tools. Unfortunately, training for all of these elements is usually conducted in a single day and is all jammed together, and there's no workshops or follow up. If that happens, your UCAS solution is going to be ineffective. So it's important to make sure that not only do people get trained initially, but they continue to get brushed up on their skills over time. Effective training should separate the various elements so that the users first understand the solution as a whole in its entirety, and how it will improve communication and collaboration within your company. Each user should be hands on, learning the ins and outs of their solution. It's also important to make information about the solution easily available so people can, if they need to brush up on their own, they have that option. Access to quick start guides are very essential. It's also important to provide that follow up training so it keeps going on and on. Proper teaching leverages things like oral instruction, question and answer sessions, practice, and reinforcement. This is really a critical component of a UC transition. If the initial user expectations are not met, if your people don't like what they're using, you're not going to get the buy-in that you need in order to make it work, and you won't get the ROI that a UC solution can really deliver. When discussing your new systems internally and during training, you're going to want to focus on the features that are most desired or needed by your users. That will generate the fastest adoption rates and will deliver the greatest productivity improvements. The fifth and final pitfall I want to talk about is failing to assign UC evangelists for your organization. During and after UCAS implementation, a number of evangelists should be selected and assigned within the organization. The evangelists should promote the new tools delivered by your new UCAS system. They would manage ongoing training as required by the various departments and embody your organization's UC vision, if you will, with their promotion and use of the UC features and functions. The position is best served by a mid level manager with the support of their entire team rather than a CEO or other executive. Having that UC evangelist in place is invaluable for really making sure that the adoption of your UC solution really settles in and takes hold in your organization. You don't want people who are lagging behind. So, with that, those are a few of the mistakes you'll want to avoid when adopting a new UC solution. Thank you for joining us for this brief overview of the fifth phase of the UC buyer's journey, the adoption phase.